Beyond first sight, Zhangjiajie reveals itself not as a single spectacle, but as a living vertical world, layered with time, myth, and life clinging improbably to stone. These pillars are not isolated spires. They rise from deep ravines carved by millennia of subtropical erosion, where streams cut through narrow gorges and clouds pool like inland seas. The region sits within a humid subtropical climate zone, receiving over 1,400 millimeters of rainfall annually, an essential force that fuels both the sculpting of the rock and the lush ecosystems suspended upon it. Clinging to these sheer walls are relict forests, survivors of ancient climatic epochs. More than 3,000 plant species thrive here, including rare ginkgo relatives, Chinese dove trees, and medicinal herbs long used in traditional Chinese medicine. Mosses and lichens blanket the rock faces, accelerating erosion through biological weathering, while pine and fir roots pry open microscopic fractures, slowly reshaping the pillars from within. This constant dialogue between stone and life is what gives Zhangjiajie its ever-changing form, a landscape never finished, only evolving. The animal life is equally remarkable. The forests shelter over 150 vertebrate species, including rhesus macaques that leap fearlessly across chasms, clouded leopards that move unseen through the understory, and the endangered Chinese giant salamander, the world's largest amphibian, dwelling in the cold, oxygen-rich mountain streams. Birds of prey ride thermal currents above the peaks, their silhouettes briefly punctuating the fog before vanishing into it again, reinforcing the sense that gravity itself is optional here. Human presence in Zhangjiajie stretches back thousands of years, deeply entwined with Tujia and Miao ethnic cultures, whose villages dot the surrounding valleys. For these communities, the pillars are not mere rock formations but ancestral sentinels, homes of spirits and guardians woven into folklore, song, and ritual. Legends speak of immortal beings ascending the stone columns, of mountains that walk at night, of peaks that drift when unobserved. Long before cinema gave the world floating mountains, local myth had already imagined them alive. Modern access to this vertical realm is an engineering feat in itself. The Beilong elevator, carved directly into a cliff face, rises 326 meters in under 2 minutes, the tallest outdoor glass elevator on Earth, offering a vertiginous ascent from forest floor to cloud level. The Zhangjiajie Glass Bridge, spanning 430 meters across a canyon at a height of 300 meters, tests human nerve while revealing the abyss below in uncompromising clarity. Yet despite these innovations, strict conservation zoning limits development, with over 70% of the park remaining inaccessible to protect fragile ecosystems. In recent years, China has intensified preservation efforts, implementing visitor caps, shuttle-only transport within core scenic areas, and ongoing reforestation projects to counter erosion and tourism pressure. Zhangjiajie stands today as both a triumph and a warning, proof that natural wonders can be shared with the world, but only if reverence guides ambition. Here, among pillars born of ancient seas and shaped by invisible hands, perspective shifts, scale humbles, silence speaks, and as the mist coils around stone giants older than imagination, one truth becomes clear. This is not a landscape built to impress humanity. It is one that reminds us how brief we are. Zhangjiajie waits above the clouds. Enter softly, look deeply, and leave changed. Our quest begins where imagination and geology converge. As the morning mist lifts, these stone sentinels reveal why Zhangjiajie leapt from obscurity into global consciousness, most famously inspiring the floating mountains of Avatar. Yet long before cinema, these peaks shaped human awe. What filmmakers captured digitally already existed here in stone, cloud, and silence. Today, visitors walk the same ridgelines that once inspired poets of the Tang dynasty, who described these mountains as pillars holding up the sky. We follow botanists into the living heart of the park, descending from exposed summits into shaded ravines where subtropical relict forests endure. Zhangjiajie lies within one of China's most important biodiversity corridors, part of the Wuling mountain range, recognized by UNESCO not only for its scenery but for its biological value. Scientists have cataloged over 3,000 plant species, including more than 700 woody plants and dozens of endemics found nowhere else on Earth. Among them are ancient lineages, dawn redwoods, Chinese tulip trees, and rare magnolias, survivors of Ice Age extinctions that retreated south and endured here in climatic refuge. Under the forest canopy, humidity approaches 80% year-round, creating a cradle for life. Ferns unfurl beside moss-draped boulders. Orchids cling to cliff faces pollinated by insects adapted to thin soils and shifting light. Medicinal plants prized in traditional Chinese medicine, such as gastrodia orchids and wild ginseng relatives, are carefully monitored, protected by strict harvesting bans and research partnerships with Chinese universities. This is not wilderness unmanaged, but wilderness actively stewarded. As we ascend higher, the forest thins and the world opens outward. A canopy walkway emerges, steel and glass suspended hundreds of meters above the valley floor. From here, the scale becomes undeniable. Pillars stretch to the horizon like a petrified army, their tops crowned with miniature forests isolated for millennia. Biologists call these sky islands, ecosystems cut off from one another where species evolve independently, increasing biodiversity but also fragility. A single storm, a single invasive species, could tip the balance. This vulnerability is why Zhangjiajie has become a proving ground for China's evolving ecotourism model. Daily visitor caps, set at 80,000 across the wider scenic area, are enforced through timed entry systems. Private vehicles are banned within core zones, replaced by an all-electric shuttle fleet that reduces emissions and noise pollution. Waste is sorted, processed, and partially converted to energy, while wastewater treatment facilities prevent runoff into fragile ravines. These measures are not symbolic. They are responses to hard data showing soil compaction, vegetation loss, and wildlife stress during peak tourism years. Globally, Zhangjiajie now sits at the crossroads of a rising trend: nature immersion tourism, travel that prioritizes emotional connection, education, and conservation over spectacle alone. Studies from China's Ministry of Culture and Tourism show that visitors who engage in guided ecological experiences are significantly more likely to support conservation initiatives and reduce harmful behaviors. Here, immersion is not passive, it is transformative. As clouds gather once more and the pillars begin to fade back into mist, the lesson sharpens. These mountains do not float because they defy gravity. They float because perception shifts, because when scale overwhelms ego, wonder takes over. Zhangjiajie is not asking to be conquered or consumed. It asks something quieter and far more difficult: to slow down, to observe, to protect what cannot be rebuilt. The quest through the floating forest is not just a journey across stone. It is a passage toward humility in an age that desperately needs it. From the forest floor, the illusion begins immediately. Looking up, the pillars do not feel anchored to earth. They appear suspended, as if the mountains themselves are inhaling the clouds. This is the experiential threshold of Zhangjiajie National Forest Park, a place where cinema merely borrowed what geology perfected over hundreds of millions of years. Established in 1982 as China's first national forest park, Zhangjiajie marked a turning point in the nation's approach to conservation, shifting from resource extraction toward landscape preservation. Yet its global awakening came decades later. When Avatar premiered in 2009, audiences around the world were stunned by floating mountains rendered in digital fantasy. only to learn that their inspiration already existed. In 2010, one of the park's most iconic pillars was officially renamed Avatar Hallelujah Mountain, and Zhangjiajie became a symbol of how modern storytelling can redirect global attention toward ancient landscapes. Tourism surged dramatically, from 1.4 million visitors in 2008 to over 5 million annually by the mid-2020s, transforming the park into one of the most recognizable natural icons on Earth. But beneath the cinematic fame lies a far deeper story written in stone. The pillars rise from Devonian-era quartz-sandstone, deposited roughly 380 million years ago when this region lay beneath a shallow inland sea. Over time, tectonic uplift raised these sediments skyward, and nature took over the sculpting. Rainwater seeped into fractures, roots pried apart weaknesses, and wind abraded exposed faces. The result is differential erosion. Dense quartz-rich layers resist decay, while softer surrounding rock crumbles away, leaving behind narrow towers, some no wider than a city street, yet soaring 200 meters or more above the forest canopy. Unlike classic limestone karst, Zhangjiajie's terrain is sandstone-based, making this landscape geologically rare on a global scale. The pillars stand not because they dissolve like limestone, but because they endure, testaments to resilience under relentless weathering. Add to this the region's subtropical monsoon climate, with annual rainfall around 1,400 millimeters and persistent humidity, and the atmosphere becomes a collaborator. Warm air rises from the valleys, condenses against cooler rock faces, and fog pools between the spires. From certain angles, the bases vanish entirely, creating the famed floating mountain illusion that has defined Zhangjiajie's mythos. At ground level, this world is navigated through an intricate human response to vertical wilderness. More than 560 designated trails, spanning over 200 kilometers, weave through ravines, cliff faces, and forested slopes. Elevated boardwalks protect fragile soils, while stone staircases cling improbably to rock walls. Routes vary from gentle valley walks to demanding ascents like the 4-hour climb to Tianbo Mansion, a historic lookout once used as a natural fortress, now offering one of the park's most commanding panoramas, an ocean of stone pillars stretching into mist and infinity. Every step through this labyrinth reinforces a central truth. Zhangjiajie is not a single viewpoint, but a layered experience. From below, the pillars intimidate. From mid-slope, they surround. From above, they multiply endlessly, dissolving the horizon itself. It is a landscape designed not for speed, but for progression, for ascent not only in altitude, but in perspective. And as we begin our climb from this base, where sandstone meets soil and imagination meets reality, one thing becomes clear. This quest is not about reaching the top. It is about understanding how time, water, and gravity collaborated to build a world so improbable that humanity once needed science fiction to believe it existed. The path rises, the mist thickens, and the mountains are waiting. Navigating Zhangjiajie is not merely transit. It is choreography between human engineering and vertical wilderness, where movement itself becomes part of the spectacle. The most dramatic ascent begins with the Bailong elevator, the 100 Dragons elevator. Anchored directly into a quartz-sandstone cliff, this 326-meter glass elevator holds the title of the world's tallest outdoor lift. In just 66 seconds, it lifts visitors from the forested valley floor to the heights of Zhangjiajie Scenic Area, revealing an unfolding panorama of stone spires that seem to multiply with elevation. As the elevator rises, landmarks emerge. The Southern Sky Column, later renamed Avatar Hallelujah Mountain, and the Enchanted Terrace, where pillars cluster so densely they resemble a petrified army frozen mid-march. What makes the ascent extraordinary is not speed, but exposure. The transparent walls offering an uninterrupted vertical reading of geology, erosion lines, and vegetation clinging improbably to near-vertical rock. For those who seek confrontation rather than elevation, the journey continues at the Zhangjiajie Glass Bridge in the Zhangjiajie Grand Canyon. Opened in 2016 and still among the most extreme pedestrian structures on Earth, the bridge stretches 430 meters long and hangs roughly 260 to 300 meters above the canyon floor, depending on measurement point. Constructed from layered, tempered glass supported by steel cables, it was engineered to withstand heavy winds, seismic activity, and crowds exceeding 800 people at once. Standing at its center, the pillars of Zhangjiajie appear no longer monumental but miniature, an unsettling inversion of scale that induces vertigo and awe in equal measure. The bridge is as much a psychological threshold as a physical one, forcing visitors to reconcile fear with trust in engineering and landscape alike. Back on solid ground, Zhangjiajie reveals its quieter, more intimate pathways. The Golden Whip Stream Trail, a 7.5-kilometer path threading the valley floor, follows a crystal-clear stream beneath towering pillars that block direct sunlight for much of the day. This shaded corridor nurtures a humid microclimate where mosses, ferns, and fungi thrive, and where wildlife feels close enough to touch. The waters here are home to endemic amphibians, including rare high-nobead salamanders, relatives of the critically endangered Chinese giant salamander, whose presence signals exceptional water quality. Rhesus macaques often appear along the trail, opportunistic and curious, while birdsong echoes off stone walls like natural amphitheater acoustics. Elevation returns at Tianzi Mountain, accessible by a sweeping cable car that climbs to around 1,262 meters above sea level. Named after a Tujia ethnic minority leader whose title meant Son of Heaven, Tianzi Mountain offers some of the park's most commanding vistas. From its viewing platforms, the sandstone forest stretches in every direction, pillar after pillar fading into mist, reinforcing the illusion that land dissolves into sky. This is where Zhangjiajie feels least cinematic and most infinite, less like a set piece and more like a living system shaped by patience rather than spectacle. It is no surprise that filmmakers continue to return here. Beyond Avatar, productions such as Monster Hunt and numerous Chinese fantasy epics have used Zhangjiajie as a natural stage, drawn by its ability to convey scale without artificial enhancement. The mist, the verticality, the silence between wind gusts, these elements cannot be replicated convincingly in studios. Yet what gives Zhangjiajie lasting value is not its adrenaline infrastructure or cinematic fame, but the balance it attempts to strike. Elevated walkways reduce soil erosion. Electric shuttle buses replace private vehicles. Sensitive zones rotate seasonal closures to allow vegetation recovery. Even spectacle here is regulated, framed by a growing recognition that landscapes this rare are not renewable on human timescales. In Zhangjiajie, every bridge crossed and every ascent made reinforces a singular truth. These peaks are not obstacles to conquer, but ancient witnesses inviting careful passage. To move through them is to participate briefly in a story written over hundreds of millions of years, one step, one breath, one vertigo-inducing glance at a time. The trail continues upward, the mist closes in, and the stone giants remain unmoved. Joining us on this quest are botanists, quiet sentinels of detail, who read Zhangjiajie not as scenery, but as a living archive written in leaves, spores, and roots. What appears from afar as stone and mist is, up close, one of China's richest botanical refuges, a mosaic of 3,016 documented vascular plant species, shaped by isolation, altitude, and humidity. Of these, 149 species are endemic, found nowhere else on Earth, their survival tied directly to the narrow ecological niches carved into pillars, ledges, and shadowed gorges. Zhangjiajie's forests belong to the subtropical evergreen broadleaf biome, flourishing between 300 and 200 meters in elevation. Warm temperatures, persistent fog, and annual rainfall exceeding 1,400 millimeters create layered microclimates where evolution experiments relentlessly. On sunlit ridges, drought-tolerant shrubs cling to shallow soils only centimeters deep. In contrast, the shaded canyon floors remain cool and saturated year-round, nurturing mosses, liverworts, and relict species that once blanketed much of ancient China. Among the most revered botanical survivors is the dove tree, Davidia involucrata, often called a living fossil. Dating back over 100 million years, this rare deciduous tree erupts each spring in dramatic white bracts that flutter like handkerchiefs, or doves in flight, against the green canopy. Endemic to China and now classified as vulnerable, the dove tree is a relic of pre-Ice Age forests preserved in Zhangjiajie's sheltered valleys where glaciers never reached. Equally significant and far more imperiled is the Chinese yew, Taxus chinensis. This slow-growing conifer, bearing luminous red arils, is biologically priceless. Its bark and needles contain compounds used to synthesize paclitaxel, Taxol, a frontline chemotherapy drug. Centuries of overharvesting for traditional medicine and pharmaceuticals have pushed the species to the brink, with fewer than 5,000 mature individuals remaining in the wild. In Zhangjiajie, botanists monitor remaining populations closely, mapping genetic diversity and cultivating saplings in controlled restoration plots to prevent irreversible loss. The park continues to yield new scientific revelations. In 2024, researchers formally described Cardamine zhangjiajiensis, a delicate member of the mustard family discovered in permanently damp limestone-adjacent gorges. With slender stems and small white flowers, this species is exquisitely adapted to low light and high humidity, yet highly vulnerable to even slight shifts in temperature and rainfall patterns. Its discovery underscores a sobering truth. Zhangjiajie is still revealing species even as climate change accelerates their risk of extinction. This botanical richness sustains an equally specialized fauna. Streams threading the valleys shelter the Chinese giant salamander, Andreas davidianus, the world's largest amphibian, reaching lengths of up to 1.8 meters. Often called a living fossil of the animal world, it has survived since the Jurassic period, but is now critically endangered, threatened by habitat loss, water pollution, and illegal harvesting. Its presence in Zhangjiajie's waterways is a powerful indicator of ecological integrity: clean, cold, oxygen-rich streams untouched by industrial runoff. Above, in the mid and upper canopy, rhesus macaques navigate the forest with acrobatic ease, exploiting vertical layers of vegetation. Their adaptability mirrors the forest itself, dynamic, opportunistic, and tightly bound to seasonal cycles of fruiting and leaf growth. Botanist-led expeditions, often coordinated through the park's research and conservation centers, transform travel into participation. Visitors may assist in non-invasive sampling, photographing phenological stages, or mapping plant distributions using GPS and drone imagery. Genetic analyses of these samples have revealed something extraordinary. Many plant populations atop individual pillars are genetically distinct, isolated for thousands of years like biological islands. This vertical fragmentation has driven rapid microspeciation, turning each pillar into a natural laboratory of evolution. Here, science and wonder converge. Every leaf tells a story of endurance. Every root is an anchor against gravity and time. Zhangjiajie's floating forest is not merely a backdrop for fantasy. It is a living system under quiet pressure, its future hinging on how carefully humans choose to walk among stone giants and fragile green lives. The quest continues upward, into the canopy, where evolution whispers and conservation becomes a responsibility, not an option. The quest ascends to its revelation high above the forest floor, on the canopy walk, where human footsteps briefly enter a realm usually reserved for birds, mist, and wind. Suspended pathways such as the 2.5-kilometer Tianzi Mountain Boardwalk and the Zhangjiajie Glass Skywalk rise 50 to 100 meters above the valleys, tracing the contours of cliffs and pillars like a quiet aerial river. From this height, Zhangjiajie reveals its true complexity, not as a forest, but as a vertical world. Below, the land unfolds in layers. At ground level, shade-loving ferns, mosses, and liverworts blanket damp soils, stabilizing slopes and regulating moisture. Above them rise dense understories of shrubs and young hardwoods, feeding insects and small mammals. Higher still, mature evergreen broadleaf trees form an interlocking canopy, oak, camphor, and magnolia species, while at the very summit of the sandstone pillars, life thins into sky islands, isolated ecological refuges where bonsai-like trees, epiphytic orchids, lichens, and drought-tolerant grasses cling to shallow soils only centimeters deep. Ecologists compare these pillar tops to the Galapagos or tepuis of South America, natural laboratories of evolution. Separated by sheer vertical walls, populations become genetically isolated over millennia. Studies, conducted by Chinese Academy of Sciences researchers, confirm that plant communities atop individual pillars show measurable genetic divergence, even when separated by only a few hundred meters horizontally. From the canopy walk, this invisible process becomes legible. Each pillar is its own ecosystem, fragile and irreplaceable. But this elevated perspective also exposes the cost of popularity. With annual visitation once exceeding 5 million, Zhangjiajie has faced classic over-tourism pressures: soil compaction along trails, vegetation trampling, waste accumulation, and habitat disturbance, particularly in high-traffic viewpoints like Zhangjiajie. Recognizing these risks, Chinese researchers and park managers have turned to advanced planning tools. Peer-reviewed MDPI studies, 2023 to 2025, document the use of geodetector models, a spatial statistical method, to identify where tourism pressure most strongly correlates with ecological degradation. These models guide zoning decisions, trail closures, and restoration priorities with scientific precision. By 2025, mitigation efforts show measurable progress. Visitor flow is now actively managed through timed entry systems, real-time crowd monitoring, and shuttle-only access, reducing pressure on sensitive zones. Degraded slopes are being rehabilitated with native plant reintroduction and bioengineering techniques that stabilize soil without concrete. Waste is processed through on-site sorting and waste-to-energy systems, while electric buses and cable systems replace diesel transport within the park core. Zhangjiajie has also aligned itself with global shifts in travel behavior. According to UN World Tourism Organization research, post-pandemic travelers increasingly seek nature immersion over spectacle, favoring low-impact experiences such as guided ecology walks, citizen science programs, and educational interpretation. Zhangjiajie has responded by expanding botany-led tours, quiet zones, and digital interpretation, including VR and AR experiences that allow visitors to explore restricted habitats virtually, reducing physical impact while deepening understanding. Advanced network text analysis of visitor feedback, used by park authorities since 2024, helps refine sustainable branding and visitor education, emphasizing conservation values rather than conquest or consumption. Meanwhile, the park's designation as part of China's Sustainable Tourism Observatory network places it within a national framework focused on biodiversity mainstreaming, ensuring that tourism revenue directly supports ecological monitoring, ranger training, and long-term research. Standing on the canopy walk with mist drifting between stone spires and forests breathing beneath your feet, the message is unmistakable. Zhangjiajie is not merely a place to be seen. It is a system to be understood, respected, and protected. Its floating mountains endure not because they are invincible, but because stewardship has begun to match wonder with responsibility. This is the revelation of the quest, that the highest view is not about height at all, but about perspective. And so we stand at the edge of the floating forest, where stone remembers oceans, trees cling to the sky, and mist carries the quiet labor of millions of years. Zhangjiajie is not merely a spectacle of pillars and clouds, it is a living archive of Earth's patience. Every tower of sandstone, carved grain by grain since the Devonian seas withdrew, reminds us that wonder is born not from haste, but from endurance. Here, evolution learned to adapt upward. Forests fractured into sky islands, species learned to survive in isolation. Life did not conquer this landscape, it negotiated with it. And in doing so, it created one of the most improbable ecosystems on our planet. A place where rarity is the rule and balance is everything. But this realm is not frozen in time. It listens to our footsteps. It absorbs our presence. Whether Zhangjiajie remains a sanctuary or becomes a souvenir depends on how we choose to enter it, whether we arrive as spectators or as stewards. To walk these paths with care is to honor the forces that shaped them, to learn from its botanists, its rangers, its silent stone sentinels, is to recognize that preservation is not resistance to change, but respect for continuity. The future of these floating forests will not be decided by erosion or mist, but by intention. So when you leave, take more than images. Carry the understanding that landscapes like this are not miracles. They are agreements between time, life, and restraint. Protect them, and they endure. Exploit them, and they vanish. The pillars will still rise tomorrow. The question is whether we will rise with them. Until our next journey, walk lightly, look deeply, and let the earth lead.